Keith, why is it that you pity Mr. Trump?
Well, I think probably one of the first examples I would suggest, if you really want to know the life of Trump or of Donald Trump, look it up on Wikipedia. And his life seems like a very unfortunate life. His grandfather, of course, made a lot of his money off of brothel in Washington State and had some questionable dealings much of his life. But worse than that, his father was very much a tyrant, I would say, very much in charge. And when Trump was only 2 years old, he was abandoned by his mother pretty much. And his father expected nothing but perfection. And one of the main things that I pity about Trump is I don't feel that he's ever had the privilege of doing something on his own. He says he's a self made man, but his father gave him millions to become self made. He's been in one failed business after another failed business all of his life. He's been in marriages and having affairs all the time while he was in those marriages, and they've broken up. Uh, when he was a kid, he got 4 draft deferments for school, which was fine. But then afterwards, his father apparently, and we don't know this for sure, but paid off the doctors to say that he had burned bone spurs that would make him ineligible, and eventually he became 4F. He was in various universities and always claims that he was the top of his class, and yet none of his classmates ever knew who he was. And it has been said, and I don't know if it's true or not, but it's been said that he had people take his entrance exams for him to get him into some of these schools. So basically, he's first. Well, once again, he's got a very definite narcissistic type personality, which is a personality disorder that you know it's sad in itself. But he sees himself as perfect, and yet I don't think he's ever had the satisfaction of doing anything on his own. So, if you want some interesting reading, just pick up Wikipedia and read the story of his life because he's had multiple failed businesses. He's had over 400 legal conflicts. I mean, 4,000 legal conflicts in his businesses. He's been impeached twice as a president. He has been convicted of fraud several times. His airline went under. His university, that's where he got convicted of fraud. I just think he is a person that has to be perfect or else he can't be happy, and I don't think he can be happy even when he is. But but you know, anybody that has marriages and during that time is dating other women and having an affair and things like that, the obviously the marriage is not going to be happy.
Let me ask you this, Keith. If someone was sitting in that chair right next to you that absolutely loved Trump, what do you think that they would possibly say to everything that you just mentioned?
They'd probably say it's all fake news. So, and a lot of it may be, but I've been kind of following Mr. Trump way back in the 80s. I remember when he was involved in the mafia and his casinos went under, and he had his pageants. And the one thing he seemed to really excel in, though, was The Apprentice. I think he did do a good job with that. And evidently people liked it very much. But he claimed, oh, and that's the other thing, the book that really made him famous is The Art of a Deal.
Art of the Deal.
Art of the Deal. He did not write any of that. That was all done by a ghostwriter. And of course, his name is published. And I can't think what it is right off, but anyway, it made Trump famous, and he uses that all the time. And yet he didn't write it at all. And that's what I'm saying. He's never had the satisfaction of accomplishing something all on his own. It would appear to me, anyway.
When it comes to what some people may call accomplishments under Trump, what do you think his best one is?
Well, I think one thing that people really did appreciate the most was The Apprentice.
I guess you mentioned that just now.
Yeah.
Other than that,
His pageants and things like that, some of them were a little bit questionable along the line. And, but, he seemed to succeed at that too. But The Apprentice was the one thing that he really did quite well. He and Rosie O'Donnell had quite a bout of it for a while there. She didn't like his hair. But anyway, no, I just say well, first of all, the narcissistic personality disorder is a rough thing to probably deal with. And I can honestly say that he probably believes when he says it's the largest audience ever, or when he got the best ever and all that, in his own mind, I think he probably believes it. But it's interesting that the people that have been around him, and that's another thing, the majority of the people that have been around him seem to be in prison nowadays. But that's just in passing. But
do you think that everything might catch up to him here with these court cases? I know there's one going on now, but the other three are...
that's kind of an interesting concept too, because he really has a big following. And there's a certain group of people that really believe that everything they're hearing is all conspiracy against him, and that everybody hates Trump, and so they're out to get him. And I think there are a lot of people that probably do, and that's probably, they are out to get him. But on the other hand, I was just reading the other day about his workman on the casino, the Taj Mahal, I think it was called. And the workman didn't get paid because he didn't like the work that they did, And, that's unfortunate. And then another thing, he was so opposed to hiring illegal immigrants, and yet in Mar-a-Lago, he had a whole bunch of illegal immigrants working for him just because he said that's all that was available, So he has, in my opinion, and just remember, this is just my opinion, I think he kind of leads a life of a double standard, but which for anybody is a very difficult place to be. But I think mainly what I pity him for is in his upbringing, he just didn't have a family that was full of love. I was brought up in a poor family. Well, we weren't rich by any means, and yet we were rich in love. But his father demanded so much of him, and he just wasn't the child of love. He was sent away to a boarding military school when he was only 13, and he's just had a hard life, and I do feel sorry for him. But I didn't vote for him, and won't. But once again, that's why we have elections, is because one person believes one way and one person believes another. And the more people that vote one way, that's who gets in.
What do you think about when it comes to voting and education?
What do you mean by that exactly? You think educated people have a better chance of a good vote? Is that what you're saying?
I guess that is what I'm trying to say.
Well, of course, educated people should be delving more deeply into these subjects than somebody, if somebody only has a fourth grade education and has an unfortunate situation like that where they've never had the opportunity to possibly go to school. They probably don't have the advantage of somebody who's had a little more education. But there are an awful lot of bright people out there that aren't educated. You know?
Something that makes me sad is that it seems to me like uneducated people may at times vote for things that go against their own interests.
Yeah. Well, say you're an uneducated person working in the crops or somewhere in the San Joaquin Valley, and your whole living is made off of the soil, and you know you're out to make whatever money you can, and you're going to pretty much believe what anybody out there tells you about how you're going to get ahead in the world. And and a lot of, surprisingly, in this day and age, there are many people that don't read at all, or even know how to read.
Are you're talking about Mr. Trump?
Well, apparently he doesn't read much, but I know he knows his alphabet. He knows the song A B C D E F G. That one. But when I was living in L.A., I had a man and wife that lived downstairs, and they wanted me to take him out to Palm Desert to look at some property that they had out there. And so I drove him out, and we stopped to eat, and they handed us menus, and I looked at it, and I said, "What are you going to have?" And he said, "Well, whatever you're having." And I didn't think much about it, and then we did something else where we're some signboard or something, and he said, I said, "What do you think of that?" And he just looked at it, and finally we were almost home, and he said, "I hate to tell you this," but he said, "I don't know how to read at all."
Oh, man.
He was a man of 45 years old, and he said, "I even had to take a trip back east not too long ago, and I couldn't tell which was men's room and women's room."
Wow.
And I thought, well, that's pretty basic reading, but there are people like that in the world, and they can be definitely led, I think, by majority actions. And that's another thing, like these rallies that they have. Some of them are almost sadistic, the way they put people down. Well, a good example was when he was talking about building the wall. He said, "Who's going to pay for it?" Everybody says Mexico, Mexico. Well, he got into office, and of course Mexico is, they're going to build a wall to keep their people in, or what are they building the wall for? And so he took the appropriations out of the military to do what little bit he did do on the wall, And everybody that is for him now says, well, look what he did for the border. Yeah.
There was an interview that I was watching where the gentleman was saying, yes, China is going to build the wall. China's going to fund the wall. They're going to pay for it. And finally, after he said it over and over again, the guy said, are you China? Are you sure it's China? It's not Mexico? It's one of those countries. One of those countries are going to pay for it.
I heard that one too. That's interesting. The China Wall, how many years did that take them to build that? 400 years?
I just found out how long it was, and I was absolutely astonished. I mean, it was I think it was like I can't remember now, but it was a number of thousands of miles.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, just from San Diego to L.A., that's an astonishing distance to imagine a wall like that being built.
Oh, yeah.
And then, triple that, quadruple that, oh man, it's a...
Oh, it's a magnificent wall too. I mean, you can drive a car down the middle of it,
Yeah.
And you haven't seen it, I guess, but...
I have not been to it, Keith, no.